guest preacher, and to kind of earn his pay, he has to do other things. I mean, he only preached. You haven't had, it's been probably 20 years since you've had a pulpit supply pastor, or more than that. Does anybody remember having a pulpit supply pastor? You don't even know what pulpit supply pastor is? It's when your pastor is gone.
Well, yeah, David Moser was here for a year after.
That's not it. It's when the pastor goes on vacation and another pastor comes in and does the whole thing. Yeah, we haven't had in a long time since there's two of us.
It's been a while.
Yeah, maybe we should try that one time, right? That'd be confusing because when I go do pulpit supply, I'm the only one there. I'm not the guest preacher. So he is a guest preacher, so he only did the sermon today. So he has to do Sunday school class. Yeah, that's it.
I agree with that.
You okay with that? Yeah.
I agree with that.
He's in training, right?
He is in training, so you get to say all kinds of mean things about him. You don't need to treat him with respect like you do your pastor, right?
Oh, I heard your sermon at 8 o'clock. It was good.
Was it good?
Yes,
What was it about?
the Trinity.
Okay, see, about Trinity. What? So anyway, Nash, I'm not going to say, so usually what happens is that whoever introduces the speaker, like, steals all the thunder, right? So I'm not going to say much. Whatever you want to share about yourself, and please do, should just go ahead and start, okay? All right.
All right, so yeah, Pastor Johnson asked me to share a little bit about becoming a pastor, what's the seminary process like, why did I decide to be a pastor? Is this too loud? Is this okay? Yeah.
They'll adjust it up there. You don't
Oh, okay, gotcha. So yeah, a little bit about myself. Nash Ringquist. This is Leo. He likes his dad right now, so I figure I might as well just keep him up here. Plus, he'd be nicer to me, I think, if I have Leo with me. It's my wife, Colleen, in the back. She's from Missouri, so we got married a year ago, and we actually came here on our honeymoon. Went through Tennessee, went down to Bat Cave, and stayed a while. So, yeah, my connection with St. John's is that my family used to go here. I was baptized here as an infant. A long time ago. But when we were 7, my family went up to a mission trip to Alaska. As you guys still do around here, Kirk and Sissy, some of you might remember them. And they liked it so much, they decided they wanted to move. So when we were 7, we drove all the way from North Carolina up through the Yukon and into Alaska to stay. So yeah, it's been about 20 years since I've been here, so I don't expect most of you to know me. So in terms of the car, I guess, is talking to why I decided to become a pastor, kind of a thing. So whenever people ask you, why is it that you decided to go to seminary to become a pastor? I think there's typically 2 reactions. The first one is, okay, people are interested. I get asked this a lot. If you're a plumber, they don't really ask, so why did you become a plumber? We drive from Fort Wayne to North Carolina and talk about what interested you about plumbing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, yeah. And the second thing is, where do you start? There's so many things along the way in your own life of God calling you. And you can just talk for hours about it, right? So the always think about is, where should I start with the story? I think it does start with, again, St. John's in North Carolina and being here. Because, Hickory is such a rich Lutheran area, right? Church has been here for 225 years. There's other Lutheran churches in the area. So I think growing up in this environment, we were very comfortable with what Lutheranism was and this kind of a thing. Then going up to Alaska, we only had one church we could go to. So the first people to spread Christianity in Alaska were Eastern Orthodox from Russia. They'd get in their kayaks, and they paddle around the Kenai Peninsula and the coast of Alaska and start preaching God's word. A lot of fun stories about that. I probably shouldn't get into all that history stuff. But anyway, not a very traditional Lutheran environment. And so the church we went to was pretty small, maybe like 50 or so people. And unfortunately, there was a church split there. You know, some people wanted to go in a little bit different direction than the other people. I think really with my family, coming from such a strong Lutheran hub to a place where we only have one church, and now they want to become two churches, it kind of has that question of, well, how do we know which way to go, right? Who do we kind of follow? I think with my family, it kind of really started off, you know, we were interested in theology and understanding what we believe, right? Because you kind of had to maybe think for yourself a little bit. So that got me into thinking theologically in a way. So that's when I guess theology kind of started in me. But I think like most kids, when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I didn't just want to go to college and get some random degree. So I just got a job at a place called Three Bears in Kenai. Because if it's Alaska, you have to name it after a bear, of course, right? So 3 bears, you got your brown bear, your black bear, and your polar bear. So that's where I worked. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? So I was interested in theology, and I found at a bookstore Luther's sermons. It was very rare. I've never found a Lutheran book in Alaska except for that one time. So it's very unique to me. So I'd read it on my breaks. I get 2 15-minute breaks, then I get an hour lunch. So I could read 4 pages every 15-minute break. Then I could read 10 pages at my lunch. So I keep it in the break room. As soon as I got a minute, hit the break, went upstairs, read my 4 pages, put it down, go back to stocking shelves or whatnot. But the ministry really wasn't on my mind at that point. I was like 19, 20 or so. I think the college experience is pretty daunting. You know, if you say, oh, I want to do this thing, okay, well, go to school for 8 years, and then you get a car, right? And you think, oof, that sounds like a lot of money for 8 years. I think along with that, too, at that point, pretty bookish, not necessarily terribly outgoing, right? Kind of like to stay at home with my book, it's, in front of the fireplace. All the pastors I knew were always very outgoing. They always seemed to know what to say at the right time, in any social situation. I thought, that's not really me. I kind of like sitting at home reading these books. I like theology, but, I don't know if the people aspect is there. And that's when God started really working, I think, in my life in that way, bringing people to me, right? There I was just stocking shelves, and all of a sudden I was having coworkers come to me and asking, you know what this verse of the Bible means? Did I confess my sins to you? I had that. The stocking shelves. Can I confess something to you? I'm like, I guess. I got a break coming up if that's something you want to do. And then another coworker said, oh, we should have a Bible study. You can come to it and whatnot. Since I was the one who would kind of like to read it, I was the one who would kind of start leading it. Those experiences started to multiply, and then I kind of started to realize, okay, I work at a grocery store, but every break I'm reading sermons. I'm hearing people confess their sins. I'm leading a Bible study once a week. People are coming to me for advice, whether I want them to or not, kind of just coming to me. And that's when I really started to realize, I think a pastor might be the job God's trying to call me to here. And I guess a few experiences, one that was pretty powerful. Leo thinks so, he's sleeping here. He's very interested. I met a young woman and we began to talk, and within about 30 minutes of meeting her, she started spitting out her whole life story to me. She was, oh, well, I used to be in prison. Okay, what do you go to prison for? Oh, prostitution. Okay. And she started unraveling her whole life to me. A guy working at a grocery store, and she stops and she says, you're really easy to talk to. I just unloaded my whole life story to you, and you just said okay and nodded your head. I think it's then when I realized that kind of the stereotypical pastor as the guy who kind of always has wise words at the tip of his tongue, is always super outgoing and all these kind of things. It's not really the point. You know, God's going to work in you how he wants to work in you. And even if you're awkward, God's going to work through that awkwardness because it's his word on your tongue that has that effect. So then I started looking at scores. I ended up going 2 years to a community college in Kenai, Alaska. You know, it's cheaper, so that's the reason. Then I started looking at Concordias, and again, the cheapest one was in St. Paul, so I went with that one. Got a bachelor's in theology. I've been at the seminary a few years. And then our vicarage is going to be in Kansas, a small town called Winfield, south of Wichita, near the border. I think that's really, yeah, that's the story. I don't know if you have any particular questions, Pastor Lagudin, or...
So, what do you remember about St. John's?
Well, yeah, like I said, I was young. We moved when I was about 7. So it's funny, we came here a year ago on our honeymoon. I mentioned that to some of you. A year ago, just about. And I think everything was pretty much the same in the sanctuary, except for the amphitheater. In my entire like mine, I remember the amphitheater just being way back there in the woods, and there was this really cool hike to get there, and there was this gazebo and all this. I was telling my wife, oh, I have this really cool amphitheater back there. And everything else was kind of meeting my expectations. I turned the corner, I'm like, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what can you say about a church you were baptized in? You know, nothing but good things, right? I mean, it's the church that ushered me into the faith. I mean, sermon today is all about baptism and the wonderful benefits that gives. And all those things were given to me, you know, right there at the font. You know, I was baptized at the same time as my mother. You know, both my parents were Methodists growing up, so they converted around the same time they had me.
Oh.
So their experience of Lutheranism was essentially here, right? And I mentioned those troubles we had in Alaska where we didn't really have a strong church to go to all the time. So we'd oftentimes tune into the service here, where my parents would talk to Pastor Johnson, Pastor Lagudin, kind of about those troubles. So I think it was always kind of felt like home, I'd say. You know, people always ask me where I'm from, and I kind of feel like saying kind of everywhere. It's like, we're kind of North Carolina, but mostly Alaska. You know, I still remember lots about Hickory, even though I moved when I was young. So, I mean, always had a very pivotal role in my life, and, you know, always remembered it, and, you know, we'd always check back in. Like I said, listen to sermons every now and again, and, you know, watch services and whatnot, so, yeah.
I was just curious myself, how active is Lutheran Church in, you said that it's pretty small in Alaska, because it seems like, you know, we have teams probably from all over the United States going to Alaska for mission, so that local churches rather, how would you describe it?
The local churches, yeah, let's see. I think that was CMS. I want to say they have about 7 churches in Alaska.
7?
Yeah, they're all pretty small. There's a lot of kind of missing plants. So a church maybe has 4 or 5 people.
Wow.
And a pastor would drive like 4, sometimes 6 hours to go bring those people communion. If you guys know like the early OCMS, you had the circuit riders, right? You guys know that. Get on their horses and they serve a wide area with their Bible, and they bring each family communion and confirmation and those things. So in Alaska, they do a lot of that same stuff, but, you know, it's in their cars, or, you know, they get a bus plane, a small plane, and go out there, or whatnot. But it's a real challenge in a lot of places. My sister lives in Glen Allen. I think sometimes you guys go out there. But it's about 4 hours away from Anchorage. So they have a really small Lutheran church there, maybe like 10 people, and they just can't get a pastor to come. So they're trying to work out, well, can he come once a month? Can he come once every 2 weeks? You know, how Mutt's going to get this guy to come and share God's word, so we can have the Eucharist, we can have communion. So he's got 6 kids, right? So he's wanting confirmation and teaching. And it's a challenge when you don't really have those resources like you have here. So, yeah, you got to be willing to make a long drive to go to a good church if you're in Alaska. That's the main thing. But yeah, and in Alaska, there's a lot of non-denominational churches, quite a few Mormon churches. You can give them that name. Jehovah's Witnesses, not a lot of Lutherans. So you're really kind of the exotic thing, if I could put it that way. So.
As you were a young man growing up and everything, I know your older brother did some hunting and fishing and stuff. Did you do the same and everything? Enjoy it?
I like hiking. I like hiking a lot. Not a hunter or a fisherman. So I always got along with the moose, and Logan never did. I was always, he got charged by a moose. I was never charged by a moose. So.
Do you want to go back to Alaska when you're done or not?
No.
No?
Is this recorded? I don't know.
That's fine. They'll send you there, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that's
Just
what
to
it
show you.
Yeah. God has a sense of humor. But,
Yeah.
Growing up there, I think it's challenging when you're a Lutheran because, again, you don't have those same, you don't have a community, really. It's hard to have friends who share the faith. And when you start becoming a man, you look for a wife and you go, where there's no one at church, what do I do now? You know what I mean? And my answer was, I guess I'll leave the state. And eventually I found her in Indiana at my fieldwork church. So I was essentially assigned to her, in other words. But, it's tough not having that community. You don't know what you have until you don't have it. It's just the reality of it. If you're in a place like this, you have the community, you have the Bible studies, you have the schools you can send your kids to. It's easy to see your faith being so strong, right? But then you go to this place where everyone kind of just looks at you like an oddity, kind of a curiosity. It's a Lutheran, I get that all the time. They're German, right? not really the point. No, it's not ethnic. Very challenging in that way. So, I spent about 20 years now. Spent 20 years in Alaska, so no, I don't think I want to go back. It's too isolated. I really enjoy the community. Where my fieldwork church is, it's in Decatur, Indiana, and they're kind of like Hickory, where they have a very strong LCMS presence. So in the town, I think it's like 20,000. They have 7 different LCMS churches. They have 3 different schools you can send your kids to, and it seems like all the time you're having friends, who want to spend time with you and those things. And, that's what you value. People always say, but in the Midwest, boring, you come from Alaska, you have all the nature and the wild. It's like, yeah, but the important thing's the church. You gotta go where the church is. And that's what's important in life. The other stuff can wait. So, yeah. So I like the South, so we're hoping for the South. Even though I'll sweat to death, that's okay. I'll make the sacrifice.
That's a very interesting point that you bring up. Did everybody catch it? I think, as you study, we look at the book of Acts, what did the first Christians do? What did the first churches do? What did they do?
They gathered in fellowship in their homes.
Yeah, they had worship services, basically. The disciples preached to them, apostles preached to them, right? Acts chapter 2. And they had the breaking of the bread, they had communion, and they had what? Fellowship, which is, I think this is a very kind of unexpected point that was brought up that we don't even think about it, right? That this is a very important part of the experience as a Christian, that you have fellowship, a word that we probably don't use outside of church that much. And it's very good that you bring it up, that to you it's more important than all the, mountains and valleys and streams and salmon and whatever else you have in Alaska, right? Yeah. Because did you say there's 7 churches, right?
Yeah.
So we have more churches in
This area.
in Conover. We have how many churches in Conover? 3 churches, right? No, 4. Let me count.
Well, and this congregation might be bigger in terms of people than those 7 churches.
Yeah, we're bigger
in
than Alaska.
Right.
How about that? Talking about biggest state. All right, well, go ahead.
I just think it's amazing that you were up there. And were you going to a church at the time that you were reading your book on, on your breaks and stuff? I mean, this was all in Alaska where this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you were working in the grocery store.
Yes, there was a church there. I mentioned they had some troubles when we first moved, how they wanted to make 2 churches. And that did get started for a number of years. So that started maybe when I was, 9 or 10 or something like that. And we got a new pastor who stabilized things. Thanks be to God for that. Probably when I was like 16 or 17. So a lot of years where we just didn't have a solid church to go to. And I should say to that pastor's credit, Pastor Atkinson, he did help me a lot, kind of walk through the process. Because again, it's daunting with 8 years, how do I really do that? And kind of walking me through, well, you gotta kind of trust God and just go for it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But, you gotta take one step at a time.
And so he was basically your mentor up there. Did you have a lot of the fellowship and all that up there did you guys get together outside of church?
Yeah, we used to hang out a lot. Yeah, me and him. Wasn't a lot besides that in the community. But yeah, I was very thankful for him. I just go into his office and talk to him. Just drive in and we just talk, whatever. So.
Did you go to the church in Kenai that we worked at?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stabilized now. It's a good church,
Yeah.
but
That was
we had
a
some
pretty
rough
good church
waters.
when we were there.
Yeah, they had a lot of people worked on the pipeline, and they'd be gone 2 weeks
Yeah.
back and stuff, and this, that, and the other. And I remember that. And the area was, you'd think you was in Conover, right there, but didn't take so long to get out in the wilderness either.
No, lots of
It
mountains.
was a beautiful drive.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a pretty place.
Yeah, we get a lot of tourists in the summer.
Yeah.
It
Now, we
blows up.
went to a dedication of a small church in 2005 when we was up there. It was on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm wanting to say it was in Sedona.
You might be thinking of, there's Sterling and Funny River.
Sterling could have been.
I think Sterling.
It was in a large, it wasn't actually a church like that. It was sort of like a office residential type building. And they was getting a pastor and dedication. And it was on a Sunday afternoon when we was up there, and we all went up with it.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what was that, and I can't remember the name of it.
It's probably one of those two, Funny River or Sterling. They're both pretty small. I just say another problem Alaska churches face, and I feel bad saying this after I said I don't want to go back up there again, is that they have a hard time getting and retaining pastors. So you get a pastor for a few years and then he's off doing something someplace else. So a lot of those churches really suffer from that turnover. So, you know, I say in Kenai we had that one church. I mean, there were two churches like an hour away, but, you know, church would get a new pastor, and two of those congregations, you know, they kind of go to that church. And so you kind of have the same population kind of bouncing between a church that has a pastor. So,
How far was it from your house to the church?
Kenai, it wasn't that far. I would say
I can't remember.
20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Went north,
Yeah, because I
Yeah, go north.
remember
of there.
driving out there to your house, and it was,
It was a big log house, if I remember.
yeah.
Beautiful place.
Yeah. Yeah, I recently sold it, moved into a condo more in Kenai.
So where are you now?
What's that?
Where are you at now? I mean, I know where you're at right now, but where do you serve?
He's going to Kansas.
Well, I'm still at seminary, so I'll go on vicarage. We're leaving in a couple of weeks to Kansas. Small town south of Wichita, northern Oklahoma border. So we're still in Fort Wayne right now. So yeah, we'll go back up. We're going to go to Tennessee tomorrow, and then we're going to go back up and pack and go to Kansas. So yeah.
You excited, nervous?
Yeah, very excited. It's a great opportunity. Seems like a great church. So
And that's a year long, right?
yeah, year long. So then I go back to seminary for one more year of study in Fort Wayne, and then go wherever God calls me. So yeah. He's out.
He is the head.
So, but very interesting. So your pastor was kind of instrumental, you would say, in you deciding to become a pastor. Yeah. So as you think about, anyway, I think I'm supposed to say something profound, but I can't. Because, think about, pastors do play. I'm not, playing my own, whatever you call it, violin. No, that's not it.
Playing your own horn.
Horn, yeah. Violin is something else. Yeah.
You could do that too.
That's it, yeah. But yeah, it is, I think, as you think about people that you might know in your life that might be interested in ministry, you can talk to them, but also send them to your pastor. That's a big role. And as you talk to pastors, it's interesting that, yes, lay people, and I'm not taking away credit from you, but it is a great encouragement when pastors encourage you. So send it our way. But talk to them as well if you know somebody who might be interested in the ministry. And we do try to talk to ourselves to the people that we think might be good candidates. It's kind of a weird thing when you talk to people that might know, but you don't know Pastor Schultz, do you? He is in Anchorage.
I don't.
No, yeah. So we do have people that move up there, yeah. Pastor Schultz, how many of you know Pastor Schultz? He was in Bethel, right? And then he was down in Mooresville, New Hope, and then he just up and left and went to Alaska to retire there. so he goes, as a country song goes, south moves north and north moves south. And you know that song? No? You want to sing it?
Go ahead.
Time something goes out, everything changes and everything stays the same. Yeah, something like that, yeah. The 1990s country, yeah. You know that song? Dare will sing that. No?
No,
She won't let me sing.
no, we don't want him to sing.
Yeah, right. So, Vicarage in Kansas, have you met your pastor yet? Vicarage supervisor?
On the phone.
On the phone,
talked
yeah.
on the phone. So
Yeah. What age is he?
he's in his 50s. Has some kids at home.
All right.
Yeah, seems like a great guy.
So, how big a congregation is it?
Yeah, I think it's about 300 or so.
300.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
She go to school, so that'd have some
The
stuff.
school, you said?
Yeah, I used to have a Concordia. I think that was maybe 50 years ago they had a Concordia there, but
Oh.
Still very much part of the community.
Okay,
Still some people who like graduated and are in the community, so
all right,
interesting.
yeah. And you said you're leaving today, back to Fort Wayne?
Leaving tomorrow. We're gonna go to Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee,
Yeah.
all right. All right. Any other questions?
Nash, do you remember your Sunday school teacher?
Oh, is it you speaking?
No, but I remember you from VBS.
Do you now? Okay.
Your family from VBS. But
Wonderful.
Let's see, 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yeah.
Trying to think who might have been your Sunday school teacher. Did you ever have Frances Goebel? You remember
Not
her?
that I know of.
It might have been after Frances. Because Lord, she taught for, how many years did Frances teach Sunday school? 50?
That was after I came, or before I came, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
The other way around.
You've been here
21.
21 years.
Oh, yeah, it's my anniversary.
Happy anniversary. That's right, because you were at camp that week. You came up to camp that
Or
Sunday.
maybe it was the second Sunday. Or was it- Anyway,
I don't know, it's right there. in the-
everybody forgot, so whatever.
Because you saw
Whatever.
walking around, that's why I was
Whatever.
who you were.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not about me.
had little Megan with you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Time flies when you're having fun.
yeah.
How did you handle the nights? I mean, the winter up there when it was dark all the time. I just couldn't, that would just,
Well, we're farther south than Kenai, so we don't get complete 24-hour darkness. I mean, it would be like, the worst it would get, it'd get light maybe like 10 o'clock in the morning, and then get dark at 4 o'clock again. So you don't have much, but you get everything you need done, 10 to 4.
yeah, okay. Well, I might could handle that, but that 24 hours of darkness would just do me in.
That's about like polar circle, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Arctic Village was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where he went a lot of times.
It's daylight all the time when we was up there.
Now, I could handle that one.
You handle the daylight, yeah.
Okay, any other questions, thoughts, comments?
I just think it's interesting to be up in a place that is not as heavily populated as we are.
Yeah.
And he's up there working and getting people to do what you're doing, and it seems around here there should be more of that.
Why do you think it's not?
I don't know. I guess because there's such a shortage that we're going through. Kind of worried about these churches are closing. There's not enough, not enough pastors and.
Well,
Might be too many distractions.
Were you talking about?
that's exactly what I was
That's
gonna
what
say.
yeah.
Too
Is
many
that
other
what you're
things
asking?
going
Why
on.
What?
don't
I thought you were talking about the fact that Nash said that he was talking to people during his break time.
Yeah,
And you don't experience that at your work? Is that what you're saying? Would you?
well, no, every once in a while I do,
Yeah.
but in my situation, like your coworkers saw your book. Even if, I don't know if you had it in a locker, I don't know if it was on a table or where you had it, but when they went in there, either they saw you reading it or something, something clicked, I can talk to this guy. This is someone that, maybe he knows more about God than I do. So.
Yeah, there was one guy who was baptized Lutheran, had some problems in life, kind of got away from it. He saw Luther's sermons, and I noticed in my breaks, my bookmark would be moving.
Yeah.
So he would be reading him during his breaks too. So he's made sure I had one in there for him. But when I went to Concordia St. Paul, right in the Twin Cities, and that was fun during COVID and the ensuing riots, but separate story there. I worked at a Home Depot, and it was the busiest one in the Midwest. And there were a lot of immigrants from Africa, so there were more Muslims than Christians there. My boss was a transgendered woman, I don't know, whatever you want to say. And I kind of had the same experience because they just saw that I would show up on time, I'd work hard, and they see like, okay, there's something to this person that's different than what I'm experiencing. So one Muslim ended up converting. Yeah, I don't think it was because of me necessarily, but he'd see, hey, this guy, he's the only guy who get cars when it's 100 degrees out. Nobody else is doing it. So, I mean, I think if you look at mission work and this stuff, you always have an impression that I have to go somewhere to do mission. You know, in reality, Christ speaks through you in your everyday actions, through your interaction with your friends, your family. You know, if you're a faithful father, then your child's going to see God in the light they see you in, because you represent God. You know, same with coworkers. You know, if you treat them the right way, you're going to mess up a lot. We're human, but you know, they see those things. Some things will click, and God will hopefully work through that. But it really does start in your vocations. God's put you in. So,
Yeah, very beautiful point. So think about. Thank you for bringing it up, Kim. Do people talk to you about faith outside? You know, as you know, again, why do I do stuff in the community? And you know what I do in the community. I'm not supposed to mention it on YouTube, but most of you know what I do there. And people talk to me because they know who I am, my full-time job. And they say preacher, you know, and they talk to me once in a while. And it helps because they know who I am. And it is an opportunity to do that. But again, that's a challenge. How do people know who you are? Do they know that you are Christian? And if they do, then you will have, not all the time, you know, but I think this is a blessing to me to do what I do because it allows me to talk to people. And people talk to me, not in the official, you know, pastoral role that, you know, and so that's kind of something that you can reflect on, that in your life, in your vocation, as Nash mentioned. Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, speaking from someone who, in the corporate world, it's almost as if it's frowned upon to talk about anything of substance because, you know, discrimination, you know, taking all these trainings about making everyone feel included.
Well, shouldn't you be included then?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the crux of it. Because they take all these trainings about, you know, not saying the wrong thing, not
Right.
putting
Yeah.
space between you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if we don't get to know each other at all
Yeah.
and have conversations, like how are we even supposed to work together? I mean, my team is
Yeah.
all over the country.
Right.
So what am I supposed to do? Like, just be like, hi.
Yeah, that's a challenge of that. Yeah. But in my, you know, everybody's experience is different, but in my experience, I've yet for anybody to just downright reject me or tell me shut up or.
I haven't either, but
Yeah.
you know, it's those things where you have that training
Right.
that you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
I do, but
Yeah. But one thing that you can learn that works all the time, even from a legal standpoint, is that you can do things by permission and invitation.
Yeah,
As
and
long as you have both, you're clear.
because
Somebody invites you to speak, you can say whatever you want. And now, if you force it upon somebody, if you come knocking on people's doors and tell them what you think about them, that's different.
well, it doesn't have to be, you know, you saying, oh, hey, can I read you a Bible verse or something, right? It's kind of like I said, those works of love that just kind of resonate from a Christian, if you will, right? Just kind of notice, you know, why is this person mad at me? You know, I harmed them, and here they are forgiving me. Like, what's that about? You know, it doesn't have to be this overtly, you know, I don't know what you'd say, but mission or activity. It could be just faith working through love, everyday circumstances. You'd be amazed how that works.
When you decided that, sure that you wanted to go into the ministry, did you have a lengthy process? Was it difficult to get everything going so you can get, because, the distance you was at, I was, just kind of curious. Was it a hard road to go, or was it fairly easy, or?
Yeah, good question. Like I said, it's intimidating at first. I think like anything else, you kind of have to know the right people. So again, that pastor and Key and I really helped because he just went through that process. We called him straight out of seminary. So I'm like, I don't know how to do this. We go, I remember doing that a few years ago. But I mean, I think with that process, you learn to trust God. I mean, I could tell you there's many times I didn't have money to pay rent, and I get a check in the mail from someone I didn't know randomly, and it was enough to pay rent. And that happened time and time again. So I think God uses the hardness of getting into the ministry, just as he does our lives, to build that trust. How come God hides behind a Bible and the sacraments? Or if he rendered the heavens and came down, there would be no place for faith. But in here, there's a place for faith, right? He desires that faith. So I think with the ministry, it ends up being a blessing. Because you learn to rely on God. He's going to take care of it. If he doesn't take care of it in the way I want, I'll still trust God. So it was challenging to get through. I mean, financially is the hardest part, just to be honest. But that creates a space for God, would be my answer. So,
Very interesting.
yeah. Well, I think Leo wants his mom.
Well, we're about done, I think, as far as time-wise. Anybody else has any thoughts or comments or questions for Nash? No. Okay. Well, we did pretty good, I guess. Yeah? What do you think? So next week, come back and we'll have Bible study next week. Would you like to say a prayer?
Sir.
Okay.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gifts you have given us today in your word and sacrament. We thank you also for the countless blessings you rain upon us, allowing us to come here in our community and rooting us all together into you in that one love which binds all things together, just as the Trinity is binded together through that love. Help us to recognize that love and to treat each other as you treat us, with love and kindness and forgiveness. Also, Lord, please send workers into your fear, to gather in the lost and the faithful into your heavenly realm. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.